There are no baseball games in Be the One for those who are sports averse. Don't worry about it.
Good point.
Nobody hits a home run and wins the game. It's all what happens in the front office, what happens on scouting trips, what happens between people who work together. So that took a while to absorb. It was a new world, not for me, the world of sports, not the world of crime.
True, and actually there is a parallel north of Montana. You do, I hope I'm not misremembering this, but wasn't there a whole thing about the cosmetic business in north of Montana?
Well, it was a thread.
But there was something anyway about it that I remembered. It was
yeah.
really fascinating.
Well, in researching this, you know, it is a different world from the FBI because it's a world of entertainment, not a world of, you know, crime.
Right.
And so the whole texture of the book is going to be different. The main character is a baseball scout. We're talking about the only woman scout in the major leagues. She had to be constructed from the inside out because she had to be believable. I was creating a person who doesn't exist. Women FBI agents do exist, and you can talk to 12 of them, and you can start to understand how they got where they are. Cassidy Sanderson is unique, so I had to construct a childhood. Her father was a major league pitcher. Her brother was a prodigy in baseball. She's a terrific athlete, and so forth, to make her real for the reader. That took a while, as well as the world that she would then be put in. And so between that and then the necessity of doing television to support the habit of the literary stuff, that's what took a long time.
Sure. What I was really thinking about, though, when I was mentioning the cosmetic thing, is that what shapes Be the One is the business of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, it seemed to me that you had been interested, at least briefly, in north of Montana in a different kind of business. So you not only were writing about LA, but you were also presenting, you know, I mean, most people read crime novels like learning stuff. That's part of the fun as you get to,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
you know, I mean, that's the reason I'm still addicted to it, maybe over every other form of fiction, is that I can always not kid myself, it's true. I can always say to myself while I'm, you know, thumbing through the novel and having a great time that I'm truly learning something.
Yes, I think that's a fascination. I mean, that's why people specialize in areas and why people keep coming back. They want to learn more about the area. And people said to me, especially women who don't consider themselves sports fans, gee, you know, baseball is really kind of interesting because they're seeing it from a different point of view.
Sure. Well, the whole business of sports, and of course, you know, we all should be aware how much money is involved.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just staggering amounts. But I also thought that not only did you do a great job on LA and Chavez Ravine and all of that, but you must have gone to the, do I have this right, or did you do internet travel to the Dominican Republic?
No, I did. I went everywhere that's in the book. I went to the Dominican Republic, I went to Vero Beach, Florida, I went to Oklahoma City for the playoffs for the UCLA Bruins women's softball team, and I went to Ashland, Oregon, where Cassidy's from, and spent a lot of time at Dodger Stadium, all of which was a total pleasure and a joy, I must say. And the book, I didn't know this going in, but all of this became a gift to myself now that I understand baseball on a different level, and I love going to games. And I'm happy that I have this for the rest of my life, you know.
Well, and I would like to thank you for the same gift, because I've always been, I grew up in Wrigley Field, and I will tell you now that being a Cubs fan, as we all say, teaches you about life.
Yes.
It's not about winning, it's
No.
about life. But I was a Cubs and a White Sox fan. In fact, my brother and I at dinner last night were saying that we thought that we ought to start a petition to the White Sox that if they play, if they make the playoffs, that Minnie Minoso should be invited in to throw out the ball, because I remember, showing my age, I remember his very first appearance at Comiskey Park when he stepped up on some pitch and slammed a home run into the center field bullpen, which was just an amazing feat.
Yeah.
But I always loved him, and most of them are gone now. Aparicio and Carrasco and Nellie Fox, who I think the tobacco got him, and on and on. And you know, now we have the Diamondbacks here in Phoenix, but if you grew up at Wrigley Field, you're still a Cubs fan. But I never really appreciated all the stuff that went behind, you know, the diamond. I mean, I take my grandchildren out to Hohokam or over to Scottsdale Stadium, and we watch spring training, and it's baseball like it used to be.
Yes.
You know, spring training actually is
That's
the way to
great.
go, I have to say. You should, if you're really, I guess you can see it in LA, but it's wonderful. March in Phoenix is such a pleasure because you can really go and do kind of the old-fashioned baseball experience. But even I, with all this background, never really cottoned on to the fact that Dominican Republic is such a farm for ball players.
Oh,
And I
yes.
was fascinated reading this book to realize it's this whole incubating ground.
Right.
Why the Dominican Republic, as opposed to some other Caribbean island
Well, no,
or
a lot
whatever?
of Caribbean. I mean, if we did trade with Cuba, there'd be thousands of players from Cuba. But traditionally, baseball began in the Caribbean, you know, and it's true, as I say in the book, because of the sugarcane growing season, because it takes 6 months for it to grow. And these guys, you know, are hanging out for 6 months in a kind of environment, in an environment that is has kind of the attributes of baseball, where things can take their time, it's hot, things can be a little bit slower, and you can get into the development of each play. It's a kind of a more languorous place to be, and so baseball, which now I don't think it's a slow sport, I think it's enormously exciting, but it fits the rhythm of baseball, and just people have become very skilled there over the years. Baseball is a way of life. It is the way off the island, which now is probably the biggest motivator and the reason for all these young players coming up in the Dominican is because these kids become responsible for their entire family's economic future if they can make it in the big leagues. And that is a conflict for Alberto Cruz, who is the phenom in Be the One, who is discovered by Cassidy. He bears the burden of his family, just as she bears the burden of her family's history, and the man she falls in love with bears the burden of his growing up. It all ties into the title, Be the One, which, let me tell you a little bit about that. Actually, a lot of people don't know this, but it is a phrase that coaches will often use to get a batter psyched. When the batter goes into the box, the coach will say, "Be the one, baby, be the one," you know. Now, that literally means be the one to get a hit, be the one to get on base, but metaphorically, it means be the one to change the game, whatever game you're in, which is certainly what Cassidy does, what I think anyone can identify with who is first in their field, kind of isolated in their field, fighting a battle that hasn't been fought before. You pay a price when you are the one. Be the one to change the rules, you know? And so all these three characters in the book change the rules in some ways and are responsible for burdens that they carry with them through life.
It's a wonderful title.
Thank you.
And there's a very good, which we haven't mentioned, it's a romance too. There's a very powerful relationship between Cassidy and, I'm going blank again, and Joe.
Joe Galena.
Which, as I remember, starts in the Dominican
Yes.
Republic.
Yes.
And then, of course, it plays out also, at least in part, in Chavez Ravine, where there is a new stadium under construction, isn't
Well,
it? Or
no,
there's
no,
going
no.
to be a sports complex.
well,
Am I
let's-
hazy here?
Yeah, let's be clear because it's real. Dodger Stadium, you know, exists and has been retrofitted, but it's really still Dodger Stadium.
Okay.
And in the book, Joe Galena is a developer who's building a sports and entertainment center in downtown Los Angeles when it's several miles away.
Okay.
And when I wrote the book, I wrote it so long ago that this thing wasn't even built yet. And in fact, there were fights over where it would be located. And thank God I guessed correctly and put it in the right place, because now it is the Staples Center.
Got it.
And that is the model of what he is building.
And that is another fascinating business aspect. I mean, you have the business of baseball in this, but there's also, you know, a tremendous financial and other emotional upheaval, uproar over doing some kind of giant development like that.
Yeah, sure.
And there's an interplay, of course,
Yes.
between, you know, the sports team. I guess it's not that different than building a shopping center with an anchor store or something. You know, there's
Yeah.
got to be some way that works. Tell me a little bit about the sign. I was fascinated at all this huge pressure that Cassidy is under to actually make the sign.
Make the sign. Well, there's a lot of different elements in actually signing a kid. The scout goes through a process of finding the kid. This can be in the Dominican or at a high school, you know, here in Phoenix.